Hello, I'm Courtney Barriger, your host of Environmental Style Now, the A to Z podcast on all that is sustainable fashion. Now, I just want to start out this episode with praise to everyone who turned out to vote in the election here in America. On one hand, it shows that environmental protection does in fact matter to us. But because of how close this race was, it also shows just how far we have yet to go. So let's keep up the good work and bring sustainability into the conversation every day as much as we can. Now, on this episode of ES Now, we are going to hear from Sienna Martz of PETA to find out why we should all consider going vegan with our sustainable fashion consumption. Hey guys, it's Courtney Barriger, and this is ES Now. Today I'm with Sienna Martz, a campaign coordinator for people and the ethical treatment of animals, widely known as PETA. Sienna coordinates corporate campaigns, ad campaigns, fashion brand collaborations, runway shows, and sustainability panels to encourage businesses and consumers to choose vegan and sustainable fashion. And thanks in part to her work, Chanel, Victoria Beckham, and Jil Sander and many, many more have recently banned exotic animal skins. Let's jump right in. Tell me a little bit about what you do as clothing campaign coordinator at PETA.
Yeah, so I've been the clothing campaign coordinator for PETA for a couple of years now, and I coordinate media events, corporate campaigns, ad campaigns. We've done fashion brand collaborations, runway shows, sustainability panels, and so much more to really encourage businesses and consumers to choose vegan and sustainable fashion. At the heart of, the very heart of all of PETA's actions is the idea that it's the right of all beings, regardless of their species, to be free from exploitation. Our world is plagued with many serious problems, and all of which deserve our attention, and cruelty to animals is really one of them. So we believe that everyone should try to stop animal abuse and environmental destruction whenever and wherever they can. And, to transition to a lifestyle that's much better for the planet and better for animals, they can go to PETA.org, which is an incredible resource to figure out what brands are vegan or selling vegan products, how to wear vegan, how to eat vegan. We have a beautiful list of all the incredible innovative textiles that are being made right now out of plants. So, I really encourage everyone to check out PETA.org to see just the amazing resources and inspiration that we've got to offer.
Who have you collaborated with? I'm just a little curious.
We've worked with so many amazing companies, from Woolly Movement in Canada, also Save the Duck, outerwear company Noise, Brave Gentlemen. We've even worked with larger companies like Free People, and we have such a long list of amazing brands that we've worked with, those that are fully vegan and those that are kind of introducing vegan lines and capsule collection.
How important is it to work with vegan products right now?
Well, I think, the public is increasingly turning to vegan materials, including faux furs and vegan leather, and they're identifying sustainability as a key factor when they're choosing what brands they want to support and what brands they want to buy from. And we're seeing, as consumers, especially young consumers, become more aware that animals are individuals, feelings, and they're learning how they're violently abused and killed for their skins, and also the environmental impact of it all. They're choosing clothing and accessories that are ethically produced, as well as functional, stylish, and just far better for the environment. So, any designer or brand that doesn't want to be left behind by this conscious consumer should really be turning to ethical vegan
And why is it so important to use vegan materials? Like, what is the impact of the farming industry on the environment?
In regards to the environment, in addition to causing the suffering and death of billions of animals every single year, the productions of animal skins, which includes leather, wool, down, fur, and other animal-derived materials, is contributing to climate change, land devastation, soil degradation, air pollution, water contamination, and loss of biodiversity. So there are so many beautiful and eco-friendly vegan options out there that there's really no reason to be breeding and killing billions of animals every year.
And I actually had a conversation with someone just last night about wool. He actually asked me what my opinion was on wool and, is that considered a sustainable product? What would you say about a product that doesn't kill the animal but is taken from the animal?
Yeah, so wool is really far from sustainable. And I think a lot of people are starting to make this connection. And there's a lot of recent data and studies coming out showing that the production of wool emits extremely high levels of greenhouse gases, which makes wool a significantly more environmentally damaging material and contributor to global warming than synthetic and plant-based options. And, actually in the wool industry, so PETA and its affiliates have released 12 exposés of more than 100 shearing operations on 4 different continents. And all of these exposés have revealed how sheep are systematically beaten, they're kicked, punched, and mutilated in the wool industry. And really, it's proving that this is an industry norm. And shearers typically are paid by the number of sheep they're shearing versus by the hour, which is encouraging this fast and violent work that leads to sheep having, gaping wounds that are being sewn shut by just a needle and thread. And, in the end, a lot of sheep who, are considered no longer profitable in the industry are sent to a slaughterhouse. But, thankfully, there are just plenty of non-wool, vegan wool options that are fashionable and keep people cozy and warm without harming these beautiful animals and our planet.
Yeah, what do you think about synthetic wool and synthetic fibers? A lot of them are made out of polyesters.
Yeah, so, as I was mentioning, research is starting to come forward that wool production is far worse for the environment than synthetics and plant-based options. Of course, synthetics still aren't the most eco-friendly alternative, so there's some incredible wool-free options coming out there, including vegan knits made from tencel, which is a wood pulp. There's also ones being made from hemp, cotton, and soy-based fabrics that are also now known as vegetable cashmere. So these are really beautiful alternatives that are becoming more readily available, and I think consumers who are conscious of the environment and ethics are searching out these more plant-based, eco-friendly vegan options.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Vegetable-based cashmere.
Yeah, I've actually touched it. It's so beautiful. It's really, and it has a very similar weight and feel to cashmere, but it's amazing that it's completely made out of plants.
That's super cool. What are some facts that have surprised you along the way as you've been working with PETA?
Oh, well, there's study after study and investigation after investigation that we're releasing and other organizations and research companies are releasing. I'm continuing to be quite shocked by the findings, but I'd say, the leather industry has really been a shocking reveal for not only myself, but consumers and businesses, because animal agriculture and methane and nitrous oxide products, which includes leather, are the leading contributors of global greenhouse gas emissions. And a study found that more than 90% of leather's environmental impact is caused by land use and greenhouse gas emissions associated with farming. So this is, this impact is coming from farming, and the actual tanning process is only around 10% of, the environmental impact of
Wow. That's incredible. I had a company before and we were using vegetable tanned leathers and and we had told ourselves that this was the eco-friendly way to do it.
leather. Hmm.
But I always had this very big, question mark in my mind, like, but there's a lot more going on here. And I did not know that 90% of the emissions comes from actually raising the animals and keeping them alive just for the slaughter.
Yeah, and cow leather is it's one of the most valuable co-products. A lot of people think that it's a byproduct, but in reality, it is one of the most valuable co-products of the meat industry. And hides make up the single largest component of this co-product, which I think values at nearly 40%. And the Center for Environmental Strategy found that leather accounts for roughly 7 to 8% of the total value of a cow, which is very significant. And as a result of the dropping value of leather in recent years, slaughterhouses and the cattle industry in general are reporting a heavy economic loss.
Well, that's kind of a good thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. But it really shows that these two industries are, coexisting with each other, and they're economically working with each other. So it's definitely leather is a co-product of the meat industry.
Wow, I know a lot of vegetarians who buy leather because they like it. The fabric is familiar and it's always sort of been expensive and nice. But I think they would be shocked to know how much it is tied into the slaughtering of the animals, because I think a common myth might be that it's just a total byproduct. Like, oh, so
Mm-hmm.
we killed the animals and now we're having a burger. What are we going to do with the hide? To me, this sounds like a reversal, almost like, okay, we need to make this leather. What do we do with the meat?
Yeah, so it's just interesting to see that people are starting to make the connection that it is a co-product of the meat and beef industry. Most leather originates from India and Bangladesh and China, where this is actually very shocking, where many of the millions of cows and other animals are killed for their skins, and they're enduring all the horrors of factory farming, castration, branding, and kill docking without any painkillers. And actually, in China, roughly 2 million dogs and cats every single year are killed for their skins, for leather, and for fur. And these products are being intentionally mislabeled and sold to unsuspecting consumers around the world, including in the US. So when you're buying leather, most of it is not labeled, or it is intentionally mislabeled. So you really don't know who your leather is made out of.
How would you say the fast fashion industry has affected the demand for leather?
Well, I think the fast fashion industry, with recent news coming out, it is starting to decline because consumers are much more conscious about the environment and ethics, not only for animals but for humans. So I think the decline of this fast fashion industry is going to impact the request for leather, and consumers are leaning towards vegan leathers that are being made from pineapple leaves, kombucha. There's also mushroom leather, uh, fruit pulp leather. It's really incredible to see how many innovative textile technologies there are out there, and I think a lot of brands are embracing these because of consumer demand. And in fact, H&M, one of their recent conscious collections, was using pineapple leather, also known as piña tech. So it really shows that these fast fashion industries are quickly trying to transition so that they don't fall behind by the conscious.
That's pretty amazing. Let me ask you this. PETA as a company on its own it sometimes comes across as very extreme. What are some common myths that people believe about PETA when you tell people that you work for it?
Well, especially since I work specifically with our clothing and fashion campaigns, one of the common myths is that, PETA actually has never thrown red paint or blood on people wearing fur. And this is a common myth that people bring up even in movies. And though we've never done this, we've often put paint on ourselves to highlight cruelty during demonstrations and protests. And so, the media often picks up on the colorful and sometimes outrageous things that we do to open the door for a larger conversation and to have people question the status quo and, in the end, to take action and change.
That's really positive. Have you taken part in any protests?
I have, yeah. I've done numerous protests in Los Angeles and New York. We have demonstrations around the world with our affiliates as well. But I've protested outside of Canada Goose's flagship store in the city. We did a protest outside the company Boo Boo, their headquarters in Los Angeles, about wool. I've done a handful of other protests, and it's really exciting to come together with other activists and to see how the public is reacting, learning about this information, especially with Canada Goose. We're encouraging consumers to boycott the company until the brand stops supporting the gruesome killing of geese and coyotes for their fur and feathers used for their jacket lining and stuffing. And so it's really wonderful to see out live in action, passerbyers really making this connection and are quite shocked by, this information about it.
At the protests, what do you guys do?
Well, it really depends on the campaign, the company that we may be targeting, or sometimes it's just positive interactions with the public. But specifically for Canada Goose, we'll have folks out there with signage. Sometimes we're showing footage on computer screens of coyotes being trapped and killed in the wild for their Canada Goose jackets. We have colorful, lively Forever 21 demonstrations about their use of wool. We'll have someone dressed up in a big wool costume, speaking with passerbyers and educating them, and explaining exactly why the wool industry is so cruel and violently killing sheep everything.
What's one of your favorite moments?
Well, I have quite a handful. I think, one of my favorite moments so far with PETA was our partnership last year with WWD Magic, which is one of the largest women's wear trade show in the United States. And so the trade show's 2019 focus was to educate the buying and retail community about the growing number of conscious vegan products and materials that are available to them. So PETA got involved with Ethical Brand Coalition LA, and we hosted a really impactful, amazing vegan fashion panel with celebrity and animal rights activist Danielle Monet and also vegan fashion influencer Molly Puddle.
Within that, are there any technologies that you're excited about?
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned before pineapple leather. Piñatex has been an incredible material that's really revolutionized the way we view vegan material options, and it's being used in large-scale collections with companies like H&M and Hugo Boss, but also vegan brands, smaller boutiques, and I believe pineapple leather is being used in one of the first vegan hotels in London. So I think that material, especially after seeing it in person and feeling it, it really shows how far we've come with technology and why breeding and skinning millions of animals every year is just completely unnecessary after to have amazing vegan options that are just readily available for designers to use.
How do you think that people and companies can do it better regarding purchasing animal products?
Well, the future of fashion lies in these innovative fabrics like vegan leather and faux fur that are kinder to the planet, to animals, and for consumers, compassionate shoppers, they really don't need to wait for retailers to do the right thing anymore. They can make such a big difference today and every single day by leaving these animal-derived materials out of their wardrobe and instead choosing from the dozens of durable, stylish vegan options and all the brands that are embracing these vegan materials and kind of reflecting the same ethical, sustainable values as the consumers have.
I want to ask you a couple of questions. So I've been on your Instagram page, siennamartz.art, and it's really inspiring what you're doing with three-dimensional art. And I just love to ask you how you got started with that.
Well, yeah, thank you, by the way. It's it's a really beautiful thing to not only work for the largest animal rights organization in the world and to have my focus with PETA be about vegan fashion textiles, but I, as a vegan textile artist, have really applied what I've learned to my practice as an artist. It's my path kind of began as focusing with textiles and sculpture, and the textile industry, especially within the arts, kind of makes you think, oh, well, I need to buy wool and alpaca and cashmere, and these are the high quality materials that every artist should be using. But the reality is so far from that, and I've really connected with dozens of vegan textile artists through social media who have made the connection that plant-based and recycled synthetic alternatives are the way to go within our art practice. And so, I've kind of blended my work with PETA and my work as a vegan textile artist to help get the message out there to other artists in hopes that they'll transition towards using more ethically sustainable practices.
So you don't use any animal products in any of your three-dimensional fabric pieces?
No. So, as an ethical vegan, it expands from what I eat to what I wear, to how I entertain myself, what companies I support, and then it really reflects the same with my work as an artist. I make sure that I'm buying plant-based synthetic options, ideally recycled synthetics, which are much more available nowadays. And so I will not work with wool, leather, fur, cashmere, mohair. I mean, any animal-derived material. As a vegan artist, it's just not necessary to include my work. And it feels really wonderful to know that my art is not, hurting the environment, and it's not contributing to the deaths of billions of animals every year. And I think a lot of artists don't necessarily make that connection with the materials that they're buying.
Yeah, how do people respond to your art when they see it and they know your stance on animal products?
Yeah, I've had a really wonderful reaction to my work, just conceptually or visually, but when people make the connection that I consider it a piece of vegan art, they really question, what does that mean? And a lot of people, seem surprised and excited by the fact that, wow, these materials like wool and silk, and mohair shouldn't be used for art. It just doesn't make sense. And I've also had a lot of textile artists reach out to me personally and kind of ask for a guideline as to where they can buy plant-based textile materials. And I actually wrote an article on PETA's website highlighting all the amazing brands around the world where, textile artists can buy material. And we also gave really nice shout outs to some of our favorite vegan textile artists.
Super. What are some of the brands that you have on your article?
I'd actually have to double check. I've really stocked up over the years on materials, and I try to get materials that are being thrown away by companies, so I'm very stocked up. I haven't had to purchase anything for a while, but I would have to double check. They're really wonderful, smaller scale businesses, but they're still producing a mass amount, and they're, selling to folks around the world.
Yeah, I can include a link at the end of the end of the podcast. Yeah, that'd be great. Is there anyone whose work in your field that you admire?
Yeah, it's really kind of an easy question for me in regards to animal rights. I do have artists that I admire, but unfortunately aren't necessarily vegan. So for me, I'd say one of my largest inspirations is, Ingrid Newkirk, who is the co-founder and president of PETA. Since founding PETA, she's grown this group into the world's largest animal rights organization, and her passion and dedication to making this world a better place for all living beings has really inspired me personally, professionally as an artist, and it's inspired hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people around the world to do all that we can to help.
Did she inspire you to take up this career? I'm just curious about how you got onto this path.
Yeah, well, she definitely was one of my inspirations. PETA really helped me kind of shine light on veganism, and the work that they do helped me transition towards this ethical lifestyle before I was even working for the organization. And actually, growing up, my family was vegetarian, and my parents taught me at a very young age about ethics, rights, and were supporters and members of PETA. And as I transitioned to my 20s, social media became such a huge influence for me to transition to veganism, especially with accounts like PETA, posting every single day, exposing all of these industries, sharing inspiration about how to go vegan, how to wear vegan. I transitioned to this lifestyle and completely changed my world. And even as an artist, before I was vegan, before I was educated, I was working with materials like wool and silk. And the moment I realized how clothing industries are, I completely dropped them, and I transitioned, and I proudly announced myself as a vegan artist. And since after college and kind of figuring out the direction I wanted to take with my career, my path led me to PETA, where my ethics completely lined up with this job, and it's really just continued to shape me as an individual, as an artist.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Really, really cool.
And I think, sorry, I was just going to say, I think that, a lot of people out there are having these eye-opening moments because of social media. It's just so wild to see how impactful this platform is to inform consumers and the general public about animal rights and about ending speciesism and wearing vegan. It's really incredible.
Speaking of online, where can we connect with you?
Yeah, so I have a couple places. I'd say I'm most active on my Instagram, which is siennamartz.art, but I also have Twitter and Facebook, which I believe both are under Sienna Martz. And, anyone and everyone can reach out to me if they want to discuss sustainable vegan fashion, what it means to be a vegan artist, or how to transition to being a vegan artist, and also just how to wear and live vegan and why it saves animals and the environment every day. So I'm an open book if anyone wants to reach out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And
thanks, Courtney.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Great. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
A big thank you again to Sienna Martz of PETA. Thanks to her, California has banned the sale of fur and most exotic animal skins. Scores of designers and retailers, including Prada, Chanel, Balmain, and Macy's, have also banned fur, and retailers such as H&M and ASOS have banned cashmere and mohair. You can keep up with her work on her Instagram, and that's at siennamartz.art, SIENNAMARTZ.art. And of course, keep up with PETA at PETA. Thank you so much for listening, and that's a wrap.
Hey, this is Alphonse Davana from Atlanta. ES Now is holding court production and is produced and written by Courtney Berger. The music is by Parker Ainsworth, fact checked by Justin Howard, and a special thanks to Alexander Shuck.